our math today because I know you guys are going to love it. So we are doing cellular biology. It's kind of integrated. It also has a lot of chemistry. We're on chemistry right now, but we read about bacteria in our microscope book, and it said that some bacteria can double every 20 minutes, and I thought, oh, that will be a really fun math thing to do. So I wrote, bacteria can double every 20 minutes. How many bacteria are there at 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and 10 hours? What's the formula? Graph it. And what time would we have at 256 bacteria? So that's what we worked on. We talked about it at first. She pretty quickly was like, oh, there's going to be 8 in 1 hour. And then she was like, oh, there should be 16 at 2 hours. And I'm like, will there be? And so we talked about it further and decided to come up with this chart that's graphed here every 20 minutes. And these are our terms. Like, this is how many 20 minutes each one of those are. When you're looking for formulas in this level of sequence, I'll try to leave a link if I can. It's important that you know what these terms are because these terms are going to dictate the formulas. So we went over here and talked about, okay, this came later. We talked about what was happening here, what we were doing each time. So we are doubling each time. And we've gone over, honestly, I don't know why people wait so late to talk about exponents, because really it's just a shortcut to make things far easier, right? Like, who wants to write times 2 times 2 3,000 times? And on the 10 hours, we recognized that the number of 20 minutes we would have in 10 hours is 30. Like, are we really going to write times 2 30 times? No way. So, but these terms allow us to understand what is happening. So first we started writing times 2, and I was like, how about we just use the exponent notation so we don't have to write times 2 so much? And she was like, yeah, okay. So then we're going through here, and I'm like, well, let's back up. How many is this one? And we are multiplying by 2 0 times in that one. So that is a great way to explore that. Eventually we will come back to that at another time to realize that any number raised to the 0 is going to be 1. And from this we recognize that this is why it's important to have the terms. And also, it's important to go step by step and understanding what we're doing at each step. So we recognize that we're taking this, and then we're doubling that again. And then we're taking that, and we're doubling that again. And that's important when you're breaking down what is actually happening in each one of these. This is to understand the progression and to come up with the formula for our progression. And this is a simple exponent formula of just doubling. And doubles are a lot of fun. There's a few books, I think A Grain of Rice, on doubling. And what's really fun is to see the connections that they make at the end. And I'll show you that in just a second. So here are our terms. This is the number. Our terms here are the number of 20 minutes that we have, right? And then we can see what's happening. So at 5, we have 2 to the 5th. The 6th term, we have 2 to the 6th. So the formula is pretty easy. It's 2 to the nth. And n is the number of 20 minutes that we have. 1, 2, and 3 hours is not challenging. And in the beginning, she was just doubling everything that you can see here. So that wasn't really a challenge. And then you can see I have 10 hours. I did 10 hours on purpose because she can double to 3 hours without any real problem. But I want to challenge her enough that she has to come up with a formula, or she has to do an ungodly amount of work to get there. And that's the thing about mathematicians, right? Is I don't want to call them lazy. I'm going to call them efficient. Mathematicians are efficient people. So when they're doing this, they're like, I don't want to write times 2 3,000 times. I'm going to come up with a different notation. Or I want to know what the number's going to be at 10 hours, but I don't want to double the amount of times that it's going to take me to get to 10 hours, so I'm going to come up with a formula. So that's what we did, and this is how many bacteria there are at 10 hours. It's 1,073,741,824. And then we came up with the formula, and I said graph it. So when I went ahead and wrote the y-axis out hours, 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, 4 hour, and then we talked about what we wanted this range to be, and I didn't even think about it. She was like, oh, we have the points for all of those places. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, at 1 hour it's 8. At 2 hours it's 256. At 3 hours it's let's see here, 512, and at 4 hours it's 4,096. It's all the way up there. She was like, oh my gosh, is that right? And I was like, I don't know, let's go back and look. So we looked again, and it is right. She's like, it goes up really fast over here. And that's the epiphany, right? When you're seeing exponential growth, and for the first time they realize, like, it starts out slow, but then it goes up really fast. So I was like, well, does this form a line? You know, because we need to connect the dots to graph it. Now, she's in 7th grade, and we haven't done any formal coordinate plane kind of stuff. I mean, done this kind of graphing all the time, but no, like, coordinate plane or no algebra yet, any of that stuff. I mean, it will come, the beginnings will come this year, but nothing that one would formally think of algebra. So we had plotted the 1, 2, 3, and 4 hours, but we felt like we needed a little more to fill in. And we talked about filling these in, but it wasn't really that helpful because these are very small increments as far as increasing compared to over here, but we really felt like we needed to fill in more here and more here. So we just did that in 20-minute increments, because by this point she had realized that there were 3 20-minute increments in an hour, and we just went in and filled in 220 at 128 and 240 at 256. That's what these points are here. And then we found 320 and 340 at roughly 1,000 and 2,000, which are what these points are here. And then we talked about connecting the dots, and we connected the dots for this exponential graph, and that was our math for today. So lots of fun. It's really, like, this is really not too complicated, and I feel like even in elementary school, given the right guidance and playing, that something similar could be done. Maybe not to this depth, but definitely something similar.